consider the possibility that your presence here in riot gear is the problem?
Let's go, let's go.
Has that crossed your mind? Is this an appropriate response?
About 2,000 people have been ordered to leave the Lake Hughes, Green Valley, and Lake Elizabeth areas.
You can see across the water from where we're standing here at Elizabeth Lake, there are structures burning at this hour. We can't tell if that's a home or some other kind of building.
This is a very small assembly of peaceful citizens expressing themselves in an expressive fashion, and I believe it will remain that. So there is absolutely no reason for you to be here, number one.
Welcome to a new show called The Fire Report. I'm your host, Dwayne Risco. We are here in beautiful Bat Studios in downtown Brunswick, Ohio. Folks, The Fire Report, as our opening show, we're going to bring you some information that's going to really rock your world, perhaps open your eyes. We're going to the cutting edge of things that you have not seen, probably heard a little bit on. We're going to give you some reports from Fox, from the BBC, and from other places around the globe. Folks, I'm not going to talk much on these shows. I'm going to always open my shows with a small introductory, perhaps talk for a few moments, and then lay on you some outstanding videos that are going to be breathtaking. Hopefully they will open your mind and cause you to sit back and say, wow. How come I didn't see it on the nightly news? How come no one brings this to the forefront? After all, we have ABC, CBS, NBC. We have Fox. We have MSNBC, CNN, and other news outlets. How come a lot of this stuff is held from us? Is it a coincidence? Is it by accident? Or perhaps are they not allowed to display some of this information? After all, you have to realize what you read in the newspapers, for the most part, is controlled. What you get in magazines, for the most part, is controlled. And definitely what you hear on the radio, for the most part, is controlled, unless it's talk radio. But there's an agenda out there to control all that, as well as to control the internet and perhaps shut many of the voices down. Why? Because a lot of the things that you're about to see are absolutely going to open your eyes. I want to thank a few people that have helped me along the way. A gentleman by the name of Bob Papp. He is very influential in helping the Fire Report. And those of you out there who motivated me to do this show, thank you very much for your support. And once again, I also want to thank my wonderful, dear, loving mother, Janet Risco, who passed away in 2011. She always inspired me to get the news out, no matter what, who it offends, who it hurts, or what it might cause. Because after all, truth is what it's all about. But there again, you have to decide what you want to believe. For the most part, some of you will laugh, scoff, and mock. Some of you are involved on these secret agendas. So tonight's shows, ladies and gentlemen, the videos that you are about to see from today as well as in the future, they are going to open your eyes. I want you to sit back, watch, think, and if you'd like, make all the copies of these shows that you want and hand them out. What I do for free. I do it because I love America. I love the country that we once had. But this is no longer the America that I grew up with. Right now, we're seeing a police state being rammed down our throats. Oh, I know. There are a lot of you scoffers out there. You don't believe anything that comes along through the pike. You know why? Because your world is involved in entertainments, pleasure, movies, and that's about it. When we come along and tell you what's going on, the first thing you do is you roll your eyes, you scoff, and you also have been brainwashed to say, conspiracy theories. You're one of those. You really think the government's out to get us? Well, as you sit back and watch some of these upcoming shows, you tell me, am I a conspiracy nut? Is Sean Hannity off his rocker? Mark Levin, Bill Savage, Cunningham, are we all crazy and stupid because we see the writings on the wall? Some of us spend our times doing multiple things. We just don't bury our head in the sand and live for today, and that's it. Some of us in America, we still fear God. We still bow our knees to our Creator. We're not atheists. We're not buffoons. We don't hold on to blind faith. We see America going down. We see America going bye-bye. We see lies. We see scandals. We see cover-ups. We see a new world order coming. We see a cashless society. We hear the phrases of global community. Do any of you hear it and pay attention? Do you hear the sounds of marching boots perhaps one day coming to confiscate your guns? Have your local communities sold out? What about your police chief and your sheriff in your town and your community? Who are they working for? Who are they behind? Did you know that the sheriff of your county has the power to tell the federal government to get out? Did you know that? Money users will laugh and scoff. Ladies and gentlemen, the Fire Report is going to bring you some outstanding videos. You need to sit back and watch, take a good look, and perhaps you too will see that the writing is on the wall. The America that I grew up in. Freedom. Freedom of speech. Being silenced. Being crushed. Being taken away. Many places across America, they're rounded up and arrested for handing out Christian tracts. Christian tracts? Little pamphlets that say, Jesus is God. Jesus is the only way to heaven. He'll save you from a burning hell and a lake of fire. For many, that's considered hate speech. The FFRF, Freedom from Religious Fanatics, really. They're a group that goes around the world, basically in the United States, crushing everything that has to do with Christianity. Hey, if you don't want to believe in God, knock yourself out. No one's forcing you to. But you're forcing freedom to be shut down in America. Freedom of speech. If someone stands up on a platform and wants to give God Almighty credit, the microphones are turned off. Our public school systems are controlled. They say freedom of separation of church and state. Would you mind showing me article, page, and paragraph where separation of church and state is in the Constitution? Would you please educate me on that? If there is such a thing as separation of church and state, I have a great idea. How about we give the schools back to the state? After all, if they control the curriculum and they say what can or cannot be taught in our schools and what was forbidden and what is not forbidden, how about the schools then in the state of Ohio take over the educational system, which made it mandatory that it is unconstitutional for property owners to pay tax levy support to fund schools? I got a great idea. Why don't you take the schools back? Take the burden off our property owners that fund these indoctrination centers, which no longer teach true history of how our founding fathers got here through the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. And how about you funding them? This way, all that ridiculous money that we're paying for schools, we could give a third of that money, I'd be willing to give it to our local cities, to fix our roads, to maintain police department, and fire and rescue. After all, fire and rescue, I tip my hat to. Thank God for fire and rescue. That is my Fire Report speech for the day. That's how I feel about it. I'm tired of seeing America getting ripped off, lied to, covered up by the mass media. The vast majority of the media is in the Democratic Party. They cover everything up. Let me ask you a question. If George W. Bush or any other Republican was in the White House and they pulled off this Benghazi, IRS, Fast and Furious, green energy, and refused to open up a pipeline, what do you think CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, and CBS would be doing? Do you think there would be a witch hunt out for those in the White House? Do you think they would want to just demonize every Republican, which they're doing today anyway? Nevertheless, I'm neither Republican nor a Democrat. I am an American. I am a Christian first and foremost. I want freedom for all. I believe that you have the right to say what you want to say as long as it ain't scandalous in lies. If you can back it up and prove it, bring it on. Ladies and gentlemen, the first video that you are about to see tonight is a video by Judge Jeanine Pirro. Many of you see her on Fox News. I think she is a standard for what all good, honest, decent women should be. Now, I know there's a lot of you women that would probably hate her because her morals and her standards are way above yours. She goes after the truth. She defends the truth. She exposes corruption, greed, filth, things that rot our country from the inner core out. Judge Jeanine Pirro, I have the utmost respect for her. What not only a beautiful, gorgeous looking woman, but highly intelligent. And if some of you take offense because I said she's beautiful and gorgeous, tough. Get over it. Also, you're going to learn about who is the Brotherhood of Islam. You know, Islam is supposed to be this loving, peaceful religion, right? That's what you're told to believe. Islam. What great things they've done. Absolutely, what great things they've done for killing innocent people, strapping themselves up with bombs in Nigeria and Sudan and Iraq, Iran, Syria, and even in the United States, more and more, all across the globe. Islam, blowing people up, destroying innocent men, women, and children with bombs, killing themselves, thinking that they're going to heaven and they're going to have all these virgins waiting in line so they could just hump them little selves into pleasureness. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a thing called the 12th Imam, the 12th or tribe. What they're looking for that in Islam, in this real deep sect, they believe that if they cause enough trouble across the globe at one time, their Messiah is going to show up and Islam is going to rule the world. Really? You really believe that? You really think that? Brotherhood of Islam, stick around. We've got some great videos that are going to expose all of this. Also, Sharia law is being pushed here in America. Did you know Dearborn, Michigan is just about run by Sharia law? Did you know that they can play loudspeakers and they can pray 5 times a day? But if you had a bullhorn and you were walking down the street talking about Jesus Christ, hey, you'd be rounded up and arrested. Only in America. Land of the free, home of the brave, right? Really? Really? Well, it used to be, but it is no longer. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to turn around and watch these videos that are going to be taking place. You're going to learn some serious things that are going on. And in my upcoming shows, ladies and gentlemen, what the Fire Report is going to be all about, you are going to learn about Benghazi first and foremost. You're going to learn about the IRS scandals. You're going to learn about chemtrails. Chemtrails are being sprayed not only in America every single day, but across the globe. You know, years ago, they used to laugh and mock me and a few others, but you don't do it no more. Alex Jones, Ernie Sanders, Dwayne Risco, and many more are now coming out and saying this is true. This is what's really happening. You can't deny it. When you watch my videos, you will see for yourself how the federal government and world agencies across the globe have lied and covered this up. To this day, they say there's nothing going on. There's no proof. How can we prove? Well, after all, don't we have some of our high courts with the high top paid lawyer saying that cigarette smoking doesn't really prove that it causes cancer and there's no such thing as nicotine addiction? Well, after all, we really don't have the facts. Who paid who off? What kind of favors were made outside the courthouses for those things to be handled? Oh, I know, only in America, right? Conspiracy theorists, we're nuts, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you're also going to learn about vaccines. You know, I'm going to show you some videos on how they want to reduce the world population. And I'm going to show you some statues that were built explaining to reduce the world population to 550,000, or million, excuse me. And if you take a look around, we see how many times you see foods being recalled, waters being poisoned, all kind of stuff going on. People dying in hospitals because of wrong medications, all the outbreaks across the globe. What's going on? Did our federal government pass bills that they can try experiments on people, biological warfare, without anyone knowing about it? Stick around. Got some videos for you. You're going to decide what you want to believe. Also, you're going to learn all about microchip implants. I'm going to show you videos on the implants. You're going to see some superhuman computers. You're going to learn about high-speed modern technology. I'm going to show you videos about computers that you had no idea exist. How does this all tie in? Why are you so fascinated with showing us computers? Did you ever hear about 666, a cashless globe? In order to have a cashless world, a cashless society, you have to have supercomputers set up globally, internationally, linked by satellites. Is it possible? Maybe it's years down the road. Do you really think it's years down the road? Stick around on the Fire Report. We're going to show you some of those videos. Also, government police states. You're going to see firsthand how SWAT teams by the police look just like the SS. You're going to see things that took place across America and taking place today. You're going to see tanks being traveled, 133,000 guillotines shipped across America. How come you haven't heard about it in other news reports? How come you don't see it on the nightly news? How come it's on the newspaper? Hey, he who controls the newspaper, he who controls the media, the airwaves, has a pretty good idea of how to control you. Hey, this is the show number 1 of the Fire Report. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you what you want to decide. You're watching the Fire Report. My name is Dwayne Risco from the beautiful Bat Studios in downtown Brunswick, Ohio.
I grew up in small-town America. As a kid, I worked in a dairy. My father and grandfather both fought in World War II. There were a lot of constants in my life, things I could rely on. Church on Sundays, the Pledge of Allegiance at school, the love and support of mom and dad, and the fact that I lived in the greatest country in the world where every day dreams come true. But last Wednesday, as I sat in a congressional hearing room on a rainy day in Washington, D.C., listening to whistleblowers' riveting accounts of what happened in Benghazi on the night Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Ty Woods, and Glenn Doherty were killed, my heart broke. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for joining us tonight. I've spent my career assigning blame for wrongdoing, instructing jurors on how to assess the truth, telling them to use their common sense in deciding who's credible, who has something to gain, something to lose, who has a motive to lie, telling them if someone lies once, you're free to assume they'll lie to you again. And there is something about the truth when you hear it. You simply know it. On the night he died, Ambassador Chris Stevens called whistleblower Greg Hicks to say, "We're under attack." The statement, clear, unequivocal, and foreboding. And Hicks did everything he was supposed to, activating the emergency response plan, mobilizing a team to repel the attack, calling the State Department's Operations Center, continuously updating the Operations Center throughout the night, even chartering a plane to fly the Tripoli response team to Benghazi. At some point, Hicks realized he was being left out of all decision-making and that the order had been given to stand down. There would be no rescue. We now know the Obama administration lied to us. They misled us, and they left Americans to die. So what do we know? Fact. The president knew at 5 p.m. his consulate and ambassador were under attack. He simply told Joint Chiefs Chairman Dempsey and Defense Secretary Panetta to take care of it. He simply went to bed. He didn't even bother to call, never checking with them again. Fact. The next morning, the president takes Air Force One to fly to a Las Vegas fundraiser for himself while Americans burn in the Middle East. He can take Air Force One for a campaign fundraiser, but he can't send fighter jets to save Americans. Fact, the fight lasted 8 hours. Fact, there was no spontaneous demonstration, no YouTube video that ignited the murderous fury in Benghazi, and they all knew it. It's not one fact, but each fact taken together as a connected whole that convinces us of what the truth is. And that truth? Jay Carney, Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they all lied to us. Now, I'm tired of the sugarcoating. I'm tired of putting truth to the falsehood. A lie is a lie is a lie. Let's call it what it is. The whistleblowers changed everything. The ones who were instructed by Hillary's chief of staff, Cheryl Mills, not to speak to anyone alone about Benghazi, including congressmen. But Greg Hicks says it best.
The job now is a significant, it's a demotion. So I've been effectively demoted from deputy chief of mission to desk officer.
Mr. President, with all due respect, you actually demote the man who was on the phone all night scrambling to get help, destroying your classified records, chartering a plane, taking on the terrorist by himself. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you demote a hero? And why would you lie to us? I'll tell you why. because of a looming presidential election 7 weeks away, because Americans can't be under attack, especially not a terrorist attack, if, as you say, Al-Qaeda is already on its heels. Mr. President, how could you not send in reinforcements? How could you not send in Americans trained for this very kind of emergency? You're the commander-in-chief. That's your job. And enter Hillary Clinton. Fact, because the Benghazi consulate security was so substandard, it could only have been inhabited if you had issued the waiver. Fact, your department continuously denied both Ambassador Stevens and Deputy Chief of Mission Hicks' request for more security. Fact, you actually reduced security when everyone knew of the threats and the prior assaults on Benghazi. And please, don't even begin to try to sell us the idea that it was about saving money, because your own staffer, Charlene Lamb, who supposedly was dismissed, swore that the resources were not an issue. And my sources tell me Lamb is now up for an even higher post in the State Department. So, Hillary, why would you do this?
I did tell the Accountability Review Board that Secretary Clinton wanted the post made permanent.
Oh, okay. Now we know. You wanted to arrive on your chariot and announce the establishment of a permanent mission in a normalized Libya. Normalized? When you last visited Libya, you had the Defense Department pre-position assets off the Libyan coast in case you needed rescue. How could you? And then you swear under oath, just back from weeks abroad, logging all those miles, recovering from the flu, the fall, the concussion, and the blood clot. You testify you didn't know a thing about your friend the ambassador's request for more security.
Any of the requests, any of the cables having to do with security did not come to my attention.
Now, Hillary, I know you were busy that night calling the president of Tunisia when all the action was in Libya. But you can't deny requests for more security in Benghazi and then blame the very people who asked for it. You can't have it both ways. And you want us to believe that you and the president are going to get the facts and get justice? You can't even get to the FBI, to the crime scene, for 3 weeks. And by the way, the FBI guys, they carry guns, don't they? If it takes them 3 weeks because it wasn't safe in Benghazi, how the hell is it safe enough for you to keep our civilian diplomats there? And what to do? Find some guys with impeccable reputations, beholden to your husband Bill, and ambassador named Pickering, an admiral named Mullen. Have them investigate and make sure they don't ask you any questions. Or talk to the guy in charge of the emergency response. And Pickering, he's perfect. He apparently believes America is already full of Islamophobes. And while you're at it, Hillary, why not throw the president of Libya under the bus, too? The man who traveled to Benghazi at great personal risk, confirming almost immediately what you already knew, that it was a terror attack, and you basically call him a liar or clueless to the rest of the world. And how about your take on our money? You take it and buy an advertisement to apologize to the Arab world about a video that has nothing to do with Benghazi while they burn us in effigy. That'll keep the lie going, too. But they say we're obsessed with Benghazi. The New York Times says that our Benghazi obsession is all about hysterical allegations of crimes equal to Watergate. Really? My memory may not be all that great, but nobody died at Watergate, and no one was left on the battlefield. Our Congress, though, they're good. They'll get to the truth.
I find it truly disturbing and very unfortunate that when Americans come under attack, the first thing some did in this country was attack Americans, attack the military, attack the president, attack the State Department, attack the former senator from the great state of New York, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
You're kidding, right?
We have the best military in the world. But even with all of their technological advances, they could not get there in time.
Now, this guy hasn't even heard the testimony, and he's already accusing the man who has the most to lose, his own life, and who was actually on the ground and in the battle, of lying. And it gets worse.
Death is a part of life.
What difference at this point does it make?
It's as if they're saying, enough with the dead and on with the living, on to my next election. And remember this one?
The White House and the State Department have made clear that the single adjustment that was made to those talking points by either of these two institutions were changing the word consulate to diplomatic facility because consulate was inaccurate.
Today we know that was a bold-faced lie. There were 12 deletions of references to terrorism at the instruction of the White House and the State Department. Hillary's henchwoman, that temple of veracity, Victoria Nuland, actually tells the CIA to remove any reference to the prior Benghazi security warnings because it could be used against Hillary. But my favorite, Leon Panetta. There just wasn't enough time. Listen to this one from 7 months ago.
A Monday morning quarterbacking going on here. Basic principle is that you don't deploy forces into harm's way without knowing what's going on, without having some real-time information.
There wasn't enough time? How did you know the fight wouldn't last 24 or 48 hours or more? In which case you could have gotten rescuers there. You could have saved Americans, but you didn't even start the process because you had no intention of saving those lives. You should be ashamed of yourself. Yes, Wednesday was a sad day for me personally, for the families of those killed, and for any American who believes, as I do, that America is the citadel of honor and freedom.
Are you communicating with individuals in the United States and encouraging them to participate in attacks of this sort?
Of course I am. You know, I am participating in communication with people all around the world. As you know, the internet makes the world a very small place. You know, we have a lot of support, in fact, post-Wootton Bassett, from people as far as afield as Indonesia, from India.
Mr. Chowdhury, based upon your answer, I believe, and I'm sure many prosecutors will listen to your answer, you have violated U.S. law. You deserve to be arrested, prosecuted, jailed for the rest of your life. That is what you, sir, deserve. You're a violent and heinous terrorist.
I would say to you, well, you can use as much pejorative.
Aims of the White House Rural Development Plan sound eerily similar to a UN plan called Agenda 21, where a central planning agency would be responsible for oversight into all areas of our lives, a one world order. Sound familiar?
Another data collection, data gathering center on Islamists, though, is accusing the Obama administration of allowing scores of known radical Islamists to make hundreds of visits to the White House. It cites court documents and other records to identify many visitors belonging to groups serving as fronts for the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and other Islamic militant organizations.
Do you know how many of the members of your Countering Violent Extremism are members of Muslim Brotherhood? Let me ask you, Mohammed El-Biari was a member of the working group. You promoted him, and it said there, I've got articles here that say you swore him in as a member now of your let's see, the Homeland Security Advisory Group. He's apparently been given a secret clearance. Let me make sure you leave here understanding. He was a featured speaker at the tribute to the great Islamic visionary Ayatollah Khomeini.
Questions now have been raised about Obama's CIA nominee by an ex-FBI agent who claims that the nominee for the CIA, John Brennan, is an Islamic convert with decades-old connections to the most anti-American variant of the religion.
Bachmann back then accused Ahmadinejad of helping members of the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrate the U.S. government. Why John Brennan should not be CIA director? Of course, he's a secret Muslim.
Mr. Brennan did convert to Islam when he served, and he has given them access to not only senior leaders inside the government, but has given them access to the National Security Council, the National Security Staff. He has brought known Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood operatives into those positions of government.
But for more than 3 decades, I have also had the tremendous fortune to travel the world, and as part of that experience, to learn about the goodness and beauty of Islam.
And we begin this evening with the conflict in Syria, where the Obama administration is preparing to send weapons to jihadists who have vowed to destroy America. That's right. It looks like the White House is, well, they're getting ready to arm al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. President Barack Obama has signaled that he will greenlight the transfer of lethal weapons to FSA, that's Free Syrian Army militants in Syria, within weeks, despite the fact that such groups are being led by al-Qaeda terrorists responsible for killing U.S. troops in Iraq who have vowed to destroy America.
So forget all of those speeches that this president gave at AIPAC and, oh gosh, we're Israel's best friend, we're going to help them, because, oh no, we're going to give people who have the power to destroy Israel on the border with Israel military aid as they are planning, many there make it clear they hate Israel, they hate us, and it's time that we do not provide military aid, abetting, and assistance to people that want to destroy Christians, that want to destroy Israelis, and that want to put the world in turmoil and have everyone living exactly as they dictate.
The very same insurgents who Obama now plans to arm with lethal weapons are the same guys who have openly expressed their radical hatred towards America. They're out there ransacking Christian churches, burning American flags.
President Obama hasn't been to church since he took office. Well, so far now he's saying we are not a Christian nation. So is there a message being sent?
What I was suggesting, you're absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that that has not
Christian
come my Christian faith. And well, what I'm saying is he hasn't suggested that I'm a Muslim.
Obama's Lucky Charms, a ring that says there is no God except for Allah.
As an ordained United Methodist minister, I am here to attest and affirm that our faith and belief in God is central to the American story and informs the values we've expressed in our party's platform. In addition, President Obama recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the... Let me do that again. All of those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. I guess...
All right, check out this website. Poor Christian missionaries were at an Arab festival over in Dearborn, Michigan when they had a huge run-in with police.
the Christians were the only ones that were charged, and you know, it's interesting, it wasn't the Christians that were breaching the peace, it was the hecklers, the Muslims who were actually making threats to them. And instead, what we have now, we have 4 Christians who are locked up and spent an evening in the jail for doing nothing more than expressing their religious beliefs. You know, in our country, we're not governed by Sharia law, we're governed by the Constitution, and we have a First Amendment that protects those rights.
Is this more, were they adhering to Sharia law in their arrest? Because it doesn't seem to be going by our Constitution.
I guess that was my point. Again, you know, our Constitution protects the right to free exercise of religion, the right to freedom of speech. Under Sharia law, you don't have those particular rights. You know, it's probably not a coincidence that in a city where you have the largest Muslim population in the United States, that you have police who are persecuting Christians.
It is so dangerous down at that border, and you don't see that on television because cameramen usually don't go there. I'm catching 60 people at a clip with the Border Patrol agents, and mixed in are people from the Middle East. We're joking about it, but it's very, very serious because as I asked Congressman King if I had a bus of drug cartel members, Hezbollah, or Chinese nationals, what don't you want to get through? The reason being is because the Chinese nationals, they could create a cyber 9/11. And I witnessed 9/11 firsthand. I mean, I was like this, and I ran from those buildings. A cyber 9/11 would make that day look simple. I mean, we're talking about shutting down our air traffic control or shutting down the electric grid on the East Coast. This country would not be able to get through that sort of thing. So the fact that we're allowing that to come through the border, this is a pathway to disaster. And we will never understand until it happens that America will never be the America we know. Because let me tell you, we just watched the city of Boston shut down for a week because of 2 guys who learned to...
Think terror training camps are only located in places like Pakistan? Think again. Our next guest has proof that radical Muslims are training to wage jihad right here in our own backyards.
Terrorist organization at war in the Middle East, and tonight top anti-terror officials tell the 6 News investigators Hezbollah agents are active in the Charlotte area.
We do believe as Muslims the East and the West will one day be governed by the Sharia. Indeed, we believe that one day the flag of Islam will fly over the White House. Indeed, there's even a narration of the Prophet where he said the day of judgment will not come until a group of my ummah conquer the White House.
Tonight we have another disturbing story to report. The Obama administration has confirmed to Fox News that earlier this month, members of the National Security Council met with this man, Abdullah bin Baya. Now, this is a group that openly supports Hamas and calls for the destruction of Israel. Now, the group was founded by an Egyptian cleric who in the past has called for the death of Americans and Jews and is banned for ever stepping foot in the United States.
This is completely impossible to understand. Why you would have this person in the White House talking to people on the National Security Council, a person who's the vice president of an organization that calls for the destruction of the state of Israel, an organization whose president has advocated killing Israelis and killing Americans. And he's the vice president of the group. So we have somebody sitting in the White House who's part of an organization that has advocated the killing of Americans.
This one's bad. This is an article in the UK Times Online. It's called UK Population Must Fall to 30 Million, says Porritt. Okay, Jonathan Porritt is one of Gordon Brown's leading Green advisors. He warns that Britain must drastically reduce its population if it is to build a sustainable society. All right? And later on in the article, the excuse they have is that countries like Britain it's the industrialized nations that are producing too much greenhouse gas, and it's not the unindustrialized nations, and that's a crock of shit. They just have different ways of reducing their population. So, because the population growth is not that drastic in the West, so they have to have some other reason. They can't say, because you're having too many babies. Anyway, they say that Britain's population is expected to grow from 61 million now to 71 million by 2031. Okay, and it says this is part of the the article is part of the thinking behind the OPT's call for Britain to cut the population to 30 million roughly what it was in late Victorian times. Okay, they want to cut it to 30 million in 2030, which is only about 20 years from now. But the population would be expected to grow from 61 million to 71 million by 2031. So let's get this straight. The population should grow by 10 million, but they want to cut it in half. Obviously, they want to kill people because there is no way that 50% of the population is just going to die out on its own in 20 years. Do you understand? Do you need to have it spelled out for you any clearer?
If you go outside the city of Atlanta, go east about 60 or 70 miles to the town of Elberton, and then go north on Highway 77 about 10 miles, you'll find off to the right what's called the Georgia Guidestones. It looks kind of like Stonehenge, these big, huge granite rocks set up there. This was done by a guy who gave a pseudonym, came in, paid cash, had this company set these things up in 1980. He called himself R.C. Christian, but that's not his real name. It says right on the stones, a pseudonym, false name. On these Georgia Guidestones, it gives the 10 Commandments for the New World Order. 10 Commandments for the New World Order. The first commandment was to maintain humanity under 500 million. I went there and looked at those things and said, now, hold on a minute. Today's population is 6 billion. They want to maintain humanity under 500 million. Looks like a lot of people got to die for their plan to work. Which
These
is,
are
by the way,
eugenicists. These are depopulationists. I know that most people who are watching this know this, but if anybody has any doubt, I'll post the link for you. Let me say it one more time. The population is now 60 million. It should be 70 million by 2031, but they want it to be 30 million. Half of what we have now. Now you got to think about that. How are they going to get it to half the population?
Why is it that our food is constantly being recalled? Why is it our food has all of a sudden become poisoned? I don't ever remember turning on the television in the 1990s and hearing about people dying from contaminated foods. Why is it a constant thing these days? It's all part of the New World Order's plans for population control. Do you know this is January 1st, 2009? There's been over 300 food recalls. I will share a few of these with you. How do you like your food? With or without salmonella? You may not have much of a choice. Why is it these days that our food is constantly poisoned with listeria, monocytogenes, salmonella, E. coli, and other deadly bacteria? There have been peanut butter recalls, tomato recalls, coconut recalls, candy recalls, sandwich recalls, pet food recalls, spinach recalls, ice cream recalls, Nestle cookie dough recalls, chocolate recalls, and yes, even baby food recalls. Why is no one doing anything about this? Then you realize the truth. The government is the ones poisoning the food. They attack the children by poisoning candies and candy bars and cookies and cakes and pies and peanut butter, because they know how little children love to eat sweets. Children love sweets. They have also targeted infants, poisoning jars of baby food back in 2006 to kill little babies. Did you know that when Barack Obama was a senator, he voted for infanticide, the killing of infant babies, anywhere from 6 to 9-month-old babies? Yes, President Obama voted for the killing of babies, saying it was good and it was the right thing to do.
The most basic of pagan practices is the control of human population to have a perfect balance between man and nature. The goal is to bring the population down to 500 million, which is over a 90% reduction in humanity.
Let me assure you that absolutely nothing that I'm going to tell you is exaggerated, is interpolated, or is imagined. Everything I'm going to tell you is documented. He who controls food controls the world. Well, they said in 1962, We're going to work toward total global implementation of Codex Alimentarius on December 31st, 2009. Now, Codex Alimentarius Commission is administered by the World Health Organization, WHO, and the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization. They fund Codex and they run it at the request of the UN. So they're mommy and daddy to Codex Alimentarius. In 1994, Codex, with no notice here in this country whatsoever, declared nutrients, put on your intellectual seatbelts, declared nutrients to be toxins. They're poisonous. Under Codex, every dairy cow on the planet must be treated with Monsanto's recombinant bovine growth hormone. Furthermore, under Codex, every animal used for food on the planet must be treated with subclinical antibiotics and must be treated with exogenous growth hormones. If you do the numbers in the WHO-FAO projections, the epidemiological projections, they estimate, not I, that just the vitamin and mineral guideline alone, when it goes into global implementation on December 31st, 2009, will result in a minimum of 3 billion, that's B, bad, big, billion deaths.
There's no doubt about it. That you're saying vaccinations can be made mandatory? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, let me stop right there. See, we have the dummy public thinking I make it up when I give you the executive order. Let me give you the executive order for forced quarantine and inoculations. And for 5 years, they've been secretly hiring tens of thousands of preachers to tell their flocks to go to FEMA camps, take forced injections, and turn the guns in. It's of God. That means they're getting ready to try it. DHS sets guidelines for possible swine flu. CBS News. Quarantines. Forced inoculations. Executive Order 13375. 13375. Here, I'll circle it. Right there for you. Zoom in on that for them. Who are out there in denial, sucking their thumbs and drinking sodium death fluoride because they love being euthanized. Why shouldn't the elite steal everything and just take over? You love drinking their poison
we're
water.
seeing here in Abilene will actually turn whatever they're spraying on and off right before our eyes. I mean, you'll see a plane up there flying like normal, and then all of a sudden it starts spraying. We've seen them fly off into the distance and then loop around and fly back again. These are not your typical planes with a preordained path destination from city to city. Someone needs to explain to me why do they stop traveling in one particular direction and then loop around and come back again. They perform this behavior so many times that we start seeing the tic-tac-toe grids in the sky. We're witnessing the giant X's. And I mean, Rosalind, when you and I grew up, these contrails naturally dissipated in a few seconds or perhaps a minute max. But these things expand, they grow bigger, and before you know it, the entire sky is overcast.
You understand, these people are so evil, and these are the governments that we are supposed to trust with our lives, trust to make decisions for us. People need to wake up and stop saying, oh, it's the government, they got to do this, they got to do that. We got to trust the government. The government wants to kill you.
While industry has failed to do any peer-reviewed studies on smart meters and health effects, a growing body of independent research is now starting to accumulate.
In our second set of tests, we're using the smart meter. Before the exposure, we see the same thing as we saw in the first samples. Normal cell walls, fairly separated and looking healthy. So after 2 minutes of exposure in front of the smart meter at about 1 foot away, we see a totally different story. Sample 1, you can see a lot of degradation in the cells. The cell walls have been broken, and you see changes in the cells which are called mycoplasma. It shows a mutation to the cell. In the second sample, we see a different type of degradation to the cell membranes. You can see a corrugation here. This is called bottle cap formation, and it's known that this occurs due to oxidation or exposure to free radicals. So this third subject, when we did her sample, she had to be pulled away from the meter after 45 seconds because she complained about an increasingly severe headache. And here you see a phenomenon called rouleau, where the red blood cells are stacking up, which makes it very difficult for the blood to deliver oxygen to the tissues as they would be their normal function. Every single one of these is a degradation. Every single one of these shows a trauma to the blood cells. And that came from something, and the only variable was the smart meter.
What's going on here? This is a wireless device which is unproven scientifically, which all the evidence so far proves is dangerous or questionable, which should therefore be studied intensely before it's released to the public. Clever people called the technology smart to make it seem intimidating so no one would question it. Some smart ad man came up with that and got paid $300,000 to call it a smart meter so you would feel less knowledgeable, which they know we feel, and then you wouldn't question the smart people putting it in your house. So I call them not smart meters, dangerous meters.
We are now entering the brave new world of smart meters. That means your electric meter will do so much more than just show how much electricity you use. The new smart meters are watching you. They sense all kinds of goings-on. They see when you turn something on or off. They see how many watts your electric toothbrush pulls. They send the record of that little event over wireless networks, bouncing through your neighbor's smart meters, all the way to the power company, where they keep record of all your electric consumption, volumes, and patterns every minute of every day, and store that data forever on computers that you'll never get to see. That data shows when you are at home, shows when you're sleeping, shows when you're on vacation, when you have visitors, when you use a lamp, a power tool, some extra computers, and if you look like you're running a business out of your home. It even senses when you bootleg energy off the grid. Your smart meter data shows a vivid profile of your personal living patterns and whether or not you were at home on the night of the murder. This is not electrical metering. This is personal surveillance. This is a search without a warrant every day. This is your personal private life going straight out through your electric meter to the power company, to the government, to the police, to the insurance company, to anyone who cuts a deal with your power company to look at your life under a microscope. Sorry, it's actually worse than that. People who don't cut a deal can get your information too by simply intercepting the wireless signal spewing from the side of your house. Yes, smart meters are radio transmitters. Here's how you tell. This one is a 1-watt radio station licensed by the FCC. On this all-news radio station, every detail of your electrical life is shooting off to some institutional data center somewhere. Already, the police in Ohio, Texas, British Columbia, and places I don't know about are regularly using smart meter data to pinpoint marijuana grow houses, enforce business licenses, and punish people for doing things in the privacy of their own homes that you were not supposed to do, but they wouldn't even know you were doing if they weren't spying on you. Your power company apparently gets to sell your personal life story to whomever it wants. Any unusual power consumption pattern is considered probable cause to raid you for growing marijuana or running a computer server without a business license. This is about as big brother as it gets. Those friendly men with their truckload of smart meters are going door to door with something a little different than a Christmas carol. My personal opinion is that you and I need to demand that these things be taken off our homes. It is not possible for your power company to claim they have the right to install a surveillance device on your house. Smart meters are no different from wiretapping devices. And in case you didn't know, wiretapping is illegal in all 50 of the states and the federal territories. If you let your power company put a smart meter on your house, you may as well walk around all day with a Facebook helmet webcam pointed at yourself. They have convinced themselves installing smart meters is lawful by some reaching to the moon jive called implied consent. If you say they can change your meter, they pretend you consent even when you don't know really what they're doing. Here's a tip. Tell them they can't change your meter. They had no trouble billing you with the old meter. If you send them a notice by certified mail that they may not install a smart meter or any other surveillance device on your house, their implied consent goes out the window. I would do that if I were you. In fact, I did that, and I'm not even you. You can see a copy of my letter in the drop-down next to this video. You can copy and paste that into your word processor. Make sure and change the info into your own info. The post office will give you the certified mail slip. Those friendly guys on the sidewalk told me that they plan to put a smart meter on every house in America. If they do that, it will no longer be America.
You lie to the American people about the chemical attacks in Syria. The American people know that it was our government that is most likely responsible. There is strong evidence, including video, that these attacks were carried out by Al-Qaeda. And you advocate starting a war, even maybe world war. President Barack Hussein Obama has been supporting terrorism. The United States has been funding and aiding its organizations, including the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, for many years now. The same enemy we're supposed to be defeating on the battlefield. At least one country in this world stood up against this government terrorism that you guys support in Egypt. The people of Egypt throughout Mohammed Morsi, which Obama supported as well, as countless Christians have lost their lives under evil people such as this. You swore an oath to protect us and protect from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. The simple irony is the domestic enemy now in this country is the people and government of the United States. And McCain and you and the rest of our leaders are accountable for their actions. Because if I was in a position of power or authority, I would have you all arrested and tried for treason against my country under the grounds of 18 U.S.C. 2381 treason U.S. Code. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. That is the code. The American people are sick of it. This country rose up against you recently. The ratio, hang on, I have a right of free speech. I can finish.